Lehi sees a fire on a rock. And what does the Lord do? He shows him a movie. He plays a video for him. Now, it's not called video or movie, it's called vision. And then just a few verses later, he trembles because of what he sees and hears. What does that mean? He watched the film. A few verses later, he goes to his home, thrusts down onto his bed, and the Lord shows him another movie.
But who directed those movies?
That's
You never know. I just step away.
The great thing is, somebody did write a script, a screenplay, right? And then, Lehi's dream, for example, he's here, he looks over here, he walks over here, he looks over there and he sees Sarah and Sam and Nephi, he looks over there and sees Lynn, and then this vision opens. That is called directing. So yes, the Lord is a director. Hey, somebody have your scriptures with you on your iPhone? Look up Doctrine and Covenants section 3, verse 15.
Not yet.
And see what the Lord calls himself in that verse. See what he calls himself in that verse. So, what does the Lord do in Lehi's vision? D&C 3:15. In Lehi's vision, he then says, he then saw this, and then he saw that over there. That's called editing. And the great and spacious building was over here. Well, the camera was aimed this direction. That's cinematography. So who's the greatest film producer, writer, director, editor in the universe? I mean, I'm not being silly here. This is real. This is absolutely real. I think it's really healthy that all of us understand that and recognize we create visions. That's what we do for a living. We create visions. We write them, we direct them, edit, cinematography. So what does section 3, verse 15 say? Who's got it?
Okay, it says, "For thou hast suffered the counsel of thy director to be trampled upon from the beginning."
Okay, the Lord is chastising Joseph, of course, because he lost 116 pages of the script. But he calls himself a director. I think that's significant. All right, so
Might I recommend we do a prayer before we could go around and do introductions of everything?
Yes.
do what?
A prayer.
Prayer before we do all
Sure.
the introductions?
Sure. And do we have a volunteer?
I'll kind of do it.
Please.
Our dear, kind, and gracious Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this beautiful day that we're able to have and for this time and opportunity to gather together to be able to uplift and edify one another so that we may more fully fulfill our roles to be able to work to create and to share thy message. We ask that thou will bless us, that we'll be inspired by thy will to be able to learn the lessons that thou wouldst have us retain so that we may more fully teach and engage. And these things we say in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we are all involved in business and art, all of that, so we're here to discuss that. Just one quick last thing, and then we want to introduce. In general conference, who is the most quoted non-LDS person?
C.S. Lewis.
That's right. So among our group, who is the most quoted non-LDS person? I would say Frank Capra. And so at the very front of his book, the name above the title, he makes the statement, only the morally courageous should be allowed to speak to millions of people for 2 hours at a time in the dark. I think that's fascinating.
It's a great statement.
Morally courageous.
Morally courageous.
So let's all of us be morally courageous and create things by, I say create. Somebody asks, what do you do for a living? Sometimes I'll say I create visions. Sometimes I'll say, I was on set when somebody was introducing me, and, well, now what is it you do? And they didn't know I was the director. And so I said, well, what I do is I create worlds. See this world I created? And so all of us are creators, really. I think our Creator wants us to become creators. In the largest sense of the term, all of us, every person, not just filmmakers. He wants all of us to become creators. Eternal life cannot be earned, but must be learned. So we need to learn to be creators. Yes?
If I can just add a little bit to kind of put things in perspective, you know, a film director sometimes ends up thinking he's God because he's a creator. And because, you know, you tell people to move that wall over here and do that, and everybody does that, you know. Somebody talked about how important it was for a film director to be a family man. Because when you spend a day telling people to do all this stuff, and then you go home and your 2-year-old pees on your lap, then it puts everything in perspective.
That's an interesting thing. I honestly believe, and I'm writing a book about this actually, not a film book, I'm writing a film book too, but the book is titled Ministering the Leadership of Christ. And I honestly believe that if you take all of the things that God does and look at them, you know, make a giant list, all the scriptures express, here's what God does, they fall into categories. The first category is creating the means of salvation, of eternal life, exaltation. And the means would include, well, you've got to have an earth here. So that's astrophysics. So all of us are going to need to learn astrophysics, you know that someday? My son-in-law graduated from medical school, and the next day I said to him, Trevor, I need to learn everything you've learned. It took me about 3 seconds to understand what I meant, but yeah, we all need to learn a lot of stuff. But the means of salvation are, yes, creating this earth and the sun and all of these things, the parts of the plan of salvation, and the atonement, and the doctrines, the covenants, all of that. But there's a second whole category, which touches on what you were saying here, which is a great mindset for all of us. The second whole category of all that God does, and everything else falls within this, is leadership. Leadership. And yes, there's management, logistics, all of that, which is a subset of leadership. Like the Aaronic priesthood is more outward ordinances, Melchizedek priesthood is more spiritual things. Aaronic priesthood is like management, Melchizedek priesthood is like leadership. And they are two separate things. But leadership is the major other category all of us need to learn. Yeah, we're going to learn astrophysics, but we really need to learn leadership, all of us. So you mentioned your 2-year-old. The leadership laboratory is the family. One of several good reasons why families are so important. So leadership in filmmaking is much of what we're all about here, and we're going to be teaching us some of that today.
And actually, I think that we should either start with Doug or Dennis and go around and end with Brandon.
That'll be very good.
Yeah.
That'll be good. So anyway, those are some mindset things like that. Why don't we start with you, Dennis? What you're involved in, do you need any help?
Okay, yeah, let me just add one thing. I love that idea about a director. I can imagine giving a talk about that, because a good director, in my mind, is not, most of the time, he's a leader. And he's
That's right.
picking up on what they are giving you and incorporating that. It's a very fluid kind of a relationship.
Eliciting.
And I think it's important for us to see the Lord in that same kind of way. He is not the big boss dictating to us. He is building on us.
Growing us.
Yeah, growing on us and waiting for us to respond with something. And anyway, I'm looking in the New Testament, looking at some of the films that are out that show all the Gospels with all the words in them, you know. One of the things you notice is Jesus, who does he praise? He praises the people who pick up something that he has said and do something with it creatively, even if it's a Pharisee or something. So when we get to heaven, he's going to say something, and he's going to look to see if we can create something based upon that. If we can't, we're not his. Anyway, so Nick is helping me and with a project right now. And I guess we're on for next 2 weeks from now.
July
right?
15th.
Yeah. So then I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's how to integrate film festivals and stuff. So so he's helping me with that, and we're doing fine. And Garrett got me a contact for Matt Jansen. Jansen?
Jansen.
Yeah. That somehow ought to be invited here sometime. Does he have family up here in Utah?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is he still at Lionsgate?
No, as
No,
of
he
recently,
wasn't.
he's not.
Yeah, he's not anymore. And anyway, and also reading Ed Catmull's stuff, and could use some input from the group when we pass it out to you in terms of an email that could go to him. I think what he's doing is really very interesting now that I've gotten into the book, and I would appreciate it if as many of you could listen to the book as possible. I go out and I work in the yard, and I keep listening to Ed Catmull's book. And he's not just about nuts and bolts. He's about how we are organized, how we work together, how we create a Zion kind of a group that's built into him, I think, from his LDS upbringing. So, anyway.
His book's called Creativity Incorporated.
Yeah.
And it's about, is it like $12 or so for a Kindle kind of thing? Yeah.
It's worth its weight.
We ought to all, I think we ought to all listen to it, and then we're prepared, and then we could say to him, we've all read this material, or listened to it, and we're ready for you, and then we can show something what we're doing in the light of what he has successfully done.
If you have the audiobook, it's worth its weight in decimals.
Okay.
Sounds
Next.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm Carla Peach. I work with Amy and Hiram doing story analysis.
How do we spell your last name?
Heesch, like school.
Where's that name from?
German, Jewish.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I've heard it before, but I've never met a each, so.
I
That's
just married
interesting.
him.
You just
So,
married one, okay.
I'm also a writer, and Amy and I have known each other like more years than we possibly.
Then we care to admit.
Yes, care to admit. Doing writing conferences and story critiques and things over the years. Also, so I'm currently working on a novel, historical fiction novel. I'm also working on my grandmother's memoir. And my degree is in computer science, so I create software. And if you're familiar, anybody use Take a Name, the app?
To go to the temple.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go get the app, it's free for crying out loud, but I helped create that. So, and founding member of Kinpoint Genealogy. It's a research tool, super fan chart kind of a thing. And yeah, go get Take a Name.
It's called Take an Aim?
Take a Name.
Is that built in? Is that
Oh,
built in
yeah.
now to,
What's that?
Yeah,
is that built into the,
As in, like, take a name to the temple?
yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
I did a bunch of videos for the motion picture studio for the push that they did.
So that's part of my handiwork. So
Yeah. That's awesome.
that's
Well, I'm Cal, so you guys already know me. So,
Yeah, but what do you need?
but,
Yeah, what do you need?
What do I need?
Brain surgery?
Oh, gosh. Well, I just spent 2 wonderful hours with Amy and Hiram and Carla, and I'm bad with names, can you tell? So,
That's fine.
can we just,
You can't remember your character's name, but that's.
I know,
very
right?
nice.
It's awful. And we just finished spending 2 hours kind of going through some of the issues with my script, and it was wonderful. It was nice to just kind of surrender my script and say, what do we need to do? And it was awesome, and it was nice to see that at least I was heading somewhere good, that it was actually, a decent piece. And so I'm starting to gain a little more confidence as a writer, because I never really consider myself a writer, but the making of is one that I want to soon, once we get this next draft done and everything, to start breaking it down. I already broke it down, but I already kind of know what to do now, and I already did the breakdown on it, and I could shoot tomorrow if I wanted to, but I want to get the story right,
We have a green screen that you can shoot on.
I know, that's a lot of the film is on green screen, you probably already read some of it.
I read some.
But I really want to make this, so I'm eventually going to have to start going after money. And so I wrote this in an effort to pay for it myself, because I have some money. But when I started kind of toying with the opening credit part, I went, oh, this is going to take more than what I got. And I just kind of surrendered and went, all right, let's go raise money. Let's do it this way. And so that's that's gonna be my next step, is to find an audience and raise the money. And so that's where, but I don't wanna just be like, oh, I just get money and let's do it. I wanna do this right, you know, I wanna do this, I wanna make it a nice experience for everyone. And so that's gonna be my next step, is once we get this script done, I wanna jump right into development and kind of keep it as local as we can to show the local talent, because I think the local talent is incredible. I really think we have good local talent that we need to showcase. And this is a chance to be able to do that, in my opinion. But anyway, so that's me, that's where I'm at. So, and this handsome fellow.
Thank you. I'm Hiram Allred. I guess me in a nutshell, Amy invited me in. Me and Amy know each other through Katie. So I started working with Katie Farmer in 2008, helping her polish up. She had already been working on her model for 30 plus years when I came on the scene. But I spent about the last decade helping her finish polishing it up and getting it ready for using it, really. I started just by taking her class in college and took it in, became a PA, and started doing one-on-one coaching with, working with composers out of LA, authors from all over the country.
Are you the one that actually presented at Pixar?
Mm-hmm. So anyway, all over the Midwest, bunch of conferences, stuff locally, UTLE, and we did Tempe Storytelling Festival, a lot of the undergrad stuff like NCUR and UCUR, we taught at a bunch of that stuff. And this was all before I was 18. So I started pretty young doing that, and then I've just spent the last decade or so working with authors and writers and doing screenplay and novel and music and all kinds of different analysis. It's really taking a look at the bones of story and looking at how different things correlate with each other to create emotion.
He's cut his teeth on it. So what do you need though?
So, well,
Scripts?
I was gonna say, I'm here to fill a need, really.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are working on projects and they want help getting it through the writing process to where it's ready to green light, like, I'd love to be a part of that process. So.
That would be terrific. So you want to do the original process of it?
I can. So on the film side, out of college, I'm sure some of you guys know Jason Fowler, Kynan, and Jen Griffin.
Yep.
Aerostorm, Camera 40. I've done almost every production with them since 2012. Now I was young enough, they didn't let me come in on the story side. Jason didn't really know what my background was at the time, which is kind of funny. But I've come up with them from the little dirt parking lot we had right off there off I-15 in Provo to 2 warehouses in Springville and a contract with ABC, and now we're shooting in Serbia. So yeah, on the film side, I've worn a lot of hats, and I started at the very bottom and worked my way all the way up to
Have you
assistant
been to
producer
Serbia with
Jim.
them? Did you go to Serbia?
Oh, I have 3 kids, and
Oh,
8 months
okay.
in Serbia was a bit much.
It is a bit much.
So, so yeah, since 2012, I've just been doing feature film and TV and done commercials for Intermountain Healthcare, and I just worked on stuff with Kurt and Lauren for doing all the sets and stuff on the Harmon Brothers Shaperwear commercial that came out a few months ago, and so I'm around. I kick around a lot.
But the team, so Carla and Hiram here, so we can work with Cal's this morning, and we work as a team, it's always better. You don't want just one person's idea.
It was an amazing experience. I mean, it was nice to see total people who I haven't met yet know my characters. And they did. They read it. They sat there and talked about them like they're real people. That was just so nice to see. And it was a great experience. There's so many things to think about and structure to go by. And I feel like I'm in AA here, trying to make sure I get it done right. So, but it's great, yeah, literally 12 steps. So good job.
I've
7 essential.
been here,
That's right.
been here working in the Utah film industry for 8 to 10 years now. ultimately where I think I have the most to contribute, especially to a group like this, would definitely be on the analysis side. I'm one of very few people in the world that's been trained on how to do this.
And we should get your
And you have
contact.
3 of them sitting right here.
Yeah,
So,
Which is what's missing, honestly, I think, in a lot of our independent productions, is being able to sit and, before letting this script go, to start the production, you want to relook at it and go, okay, what can we do to make this a good thing?
And then-
That's so
I mean,
missing.
from story, and then have somebody with the same understanding to be able to direct it, and then the same understanding to edit it so that that message gets through
Yeah.
all
All
the
three
way
creations.
through.
All
with-
three
and with
creations.
good acting.
Yeah, and I think part of the humility, I don't mean to break off into this, Robert, I apologize, but part of the humility side in doing this is really coming to the conclusion that as a director or as a writer, you have to realize you don't know it all. We don't know it all. We're married to something for a while and we're like, oh yeah, I know. This is, and then once you hand it to somebody else, you could have messed something up because you were so married to that product. And so you got to be able to find a way for somebody else to look at it and say, yeah, but you didn't remember this, and you didn't remember this structure, and you didn't remember this character. And you're like, oh, and you kind of have to surrender that. That's part of the humility side of being LDS and being a filmmaker is you're not God. You're there to kind of represent, so to speak, but you also got to call on all the right people to do it. And so, yeah, that's just something that I'm realizing. So.
Real quick mindset on that, which is really great you bring that up. Some people I've heard will say, well, you're either a follower or you're a leader. Which are you? And here's the response to that. Who is the greatest leader who ever lived on the earth? Well, it's the Savior. Who is the greatest follower of the Father who ever lived on the earth?
The Savior.
The Savior. We are to be both at the same time. They're not opposites pulling on each other. And likewise with directing a film, writing it, it is leadership, is what it is. You are leading the minds and the hearts of the audience. And you're taking them on a journey. And it is a very important responsibility, which is why the quote from Frank Capra. So yeah, let's take that very seriously. It is leadership that we're all involved with, leading minds and hearts on a journey. So thank you. We need your contact information.
yep, absolutely. Happy to provide it. Hiram, H-Y-R-U-M, Allred, A-L-L-R-E-D, and phone number is 801-913-6986. My phone is on silent a lot, so if it goes to voicemail, please send me a text. Please.
You want to leave a voicemail?
Voicemail works too.
Email?
You'll get a response to a text pretty quick. Voicemail might take me a day or two to get to, depending on what projects I'm on. Email is hiram.m.allred@gmail.com.
Hiram M. Dot.
Yep, that's just my middle initial, throw it in there.
Do you have relatives that lived out in Colorado?
My grandfather was Reuel Clark Allred, assassinated in the 70s. My dad was a polygamist. I'm related to almost any Allred in this entire area of the United States. I'm first and second cousins with thousands of Allreds.
Okay.
So, yeah, definitely
I tried
have
to
roots right here in Utah.
And your contact.
CM Heesh,
C.M.
Heesh.
Heesh, @gmail.
Phone number?
801-830-4034.
All right.
Don't know if that was TMI. The room went tumbleweeds when I said my dad was a polygamist.
No, wait.
Most of us were going, is that my relative too? Yeah, make sure.
Say, I got a great grandfather up there right in that balcony, so don't worry about that.
Yep. So, anyway, history of the church and things like that. I mean, I grew up on two sides of the coin. Grew up as raised in a polygamous family with 3 moms and super in-depth with history of the church and all that stuff. And then as I moved out and left, married my wife, got baptized in the church, opened the temple. So you've got a lot of different contexts.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
A lot of different
Yes.
contexts being taught two completely different viewpoints of the church.
Yes.
So, anyway, there's me in a nutshell.
Well, I'm Dave Doring. I am in love with creators. And so that's why when I was a freshman at BYU, I started a conference for writers. It's now quite seasoned, Life, the Universe, and Everything. We had 1,700 attend last February. I have learned about organizing and getting this kind of community empowered to help each other, because that's our secret sauce. If anyone saw Artemis Fowl that just got released, you can see the screw-up happens when Hollywood gets with a gem of a pre-sold property that every junior high kid loves. And how can you mess that up? And yet, you know, when you have people pulling and shoving to have their vision of the vision, then it doesn't work. Whereas we, as a community here in Utah, love to work together, because we don't think my slice of the pie has to be torn from Kel's or Dennis or Nick or Evan, and we think we'll just make a bigger pie. We'll make more things. And so what I need help with right now is to see us continue to grow this group and become effective, because I think together we're much stronger and we can find things. Just, I didn't know you before, you know. I knew Nick and Dennis, but I didn't know him, and I certainly didn't know you, you know, and now I'm absolutely fascinated by this. And we need this, because of the one aspect of the creator that I know is we're very lonely people. Unless you've been in the trenches creating, you don't know how hard it is to continue in that battle against that chattering monkey in your head that screams, "You're an idiot, you can't do this, you're not a filmmaker, you can't get money, you can't do anything." And you've got to overcome that. And it helps when other people are, look, I'm going through the same thing, I'm going through the exact same thing. So together, let's pull forward on this. And because I think, you know, we're a city set on a hill, and I think people should be looking to us for telling great stories and in media, because the price of all this is plummeted, so that we no longer are just begging from the pagan worshipers of the almighty dollar, but we can do something. With a bloody cell phone, we can tell a marvelous story right from here. So anyway, and I'm a New Yorker, so of course I'm stubborn, and that's one of the reasons that I press forward against incredible odds.
Loud and stubborn, the way we like you, Dave. Don't you change, brother.
Well, yes, a tagline like that, you know.
You have to live up to it.
Yeah, because, and as soon as my podcast gets launched again, I'll let you know, but it will be never boring with Dave Doring. It's too much fun out here. So that's my 2 cents worth, and you already have my contact info. Not like the name Doring, there's not like Allred, you know, there's only a handful of Dorings. And so you look me up on Google. So, I don't know.
Good. Most of you know me, so I won't go into background stuff, but right now I have several projects in development. I am finishing editing on a TV show that's airing, actually I finished the editing, I better get it finished right away, that airs in 3.5 weeks on 14 stations around the West. But did a TV series last year that aired, and then a number of dramatic films. So part of what I'm doing right now is mostly in development. Robert Starling and I have a couple of projects initiated together, and we're looking for funding on those. But some great projects. I don't right now have anything specific other than that, but in the coming weeks I'll be looking for more crew and such. Anyway.
What about the group that came to you and they wanted to do a feature with you?
Yeah, the fellow who is pulling the funding together, well, there's two of them there. They've been in Geneva, Switzerland since first week in March, stuck. And they will be released from there, so to speak. They went ahead, instead of hotel every night in March, they rented an apartment now.
They'll be back in about 3 weeks, but they think they've got funding almost totally in place on that. And that will be decently, not huge, but it'll be decently funded, feature film, and it'll be a great script, which I do want to have some review on here at some point, bring the writer in, a really excellent writer and excellent script, but I do want to have that review and stuff. And I take real seriously the writing aspect as a director, because a whole lot of films are terrific scripts that are ruined by lousy directors. And directing and writing are right together, and that's one of the books I like to be writing as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that is still looking positive, but not the funds yet in the place, but we're hoping that will be the case soon. So.
So what we're looking at fairly quickly, Harmer and I have permission to do a master class with Katie, with her, her first-hand account of things. And we talked a little bit about having, the second camera on that. Maybe a little help.
I think between the group of us, we could put together about 30 cameras.
We could do like a Saturday Night Live broadcast for you.
Well, we're greenlit to shoot the master class, 8-hour day, 1-hour lunch on the 13th of August currently, which is a Thursday. So, and I've got a C-series Canon that I was just going to shoot it on. Definitely not a red or anything we shoot features on, but for 1080p, it's nice. It's
So,
4K.
August 13th, you said?
Huh?
If not sooner.
Use them out.
If not sooner.
Well, let's make it happen then.
Yeah.
We're
A
all-
live thing, or is it something you're gonna edit later?
Edit later.
Edit later. That was
Yeah, so
honestly
that's
just
why the
gonna come
different
out, set up
angles to
here.
have
Yeah.
something,
You're just gonna go between the PowerPoint and the speakers? Or-
Similar. Anyone here who's watched master classes through the actual master class company, they're super straightforward. It's literally just whoever's teaching, talking to the camera, and then cutting away to whatever supplemental material needs to be done.
yeah.
You're going to shoot right here?
Yeah.
All right.
She's presenting to a group or she's presenting to camera?
She's very concerned about COVID, so it would have to be very, very small.
Very small.
But she's agreed she feels like it's important for her stuff to be recorded and documented before the book comes out.
It's
Do you have
literally
plans
just
for
whoever's
audio
teaching,
production
talking
as
directly to
well?
the camera.
Yeah,
The whole
Yeah.
day?
yeah.
Well, let's do it.
And then, so there's just something, and it's fun because you get actually listen to it. The hard part is keeping her focused. I'll be on graphics that, will be the pop-ups. The other thing, put us to work. Give us the scripts. I've got the go-ahead from Carl and Ram that we're willing to.
No one's really familiar with Katie. It's taken a decade to greenlight this master class.
Yeah.
So it's actually a pretty big deal, and we've had some interesting people come at us for Katie's material just because of the numberless applications. She's turned down defense contracts and all kinds of things.
DARPA came to us, yeah.
So the story is a universal heart of really buried in communication and the way the human mind thinks. And so understanding that can be very powerful tool and used for a lot of different reasons, good or bad.
Well, this is great, the way the human mind thinks. All of us care about that. Directing, writing, every aspect, but everybody should as well.
Well, it's just so, it's hard. My mother told me, you can never predict how I'm gonna fill out a story. This stuff, there's no way that works. And now she's like, no, there's really something wrong with this, and I can't put my finger on it. Can you look at it and tell me what's going on? Because she's come around. So I did have a very interesting thing on, I think I'll be, you've already, I don't know.
Say, simply put, a well-executed story, and this is actually neuroscience backs it up now, a well-executed story generates the same chemicals in the brain that someone actually experiencing that generates in the brain. So you're literally walking someone through an experience chemically in their brain by executing a well-told story. And a well-told story comes in the entire range of emotions, so it depends on what you're after. So ultimately what we're looking at is the heart, the theme, what you want to tell, and then our job is to try and help you execute that theme as flawlessly as possible so that the emotional impact lands for whoever's
So it's like
watching.
a example.
So that's really, we're looking at deep structure, we're looking at the core and the roots of the message you're trying to tell, and then our job is just to help you make sure you're hitting the mark to tell the story you want to tell. So,
And knowing the method, how you tell it will, I mean, you can choose to do something that would become a museum piece, Waiting for Godot, or, and for whatever purpose that you want to tell it, or if you want one that, hey, I don't care, I want as many people to love, fall in love with it as I possibly can, and to get the masses. You know, you knowingly be able to choose your path and what you're doing and how it affects that.
know exactly what to expect
Okay.
when you start writing. Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank Amy for providing craft services, as well as this beautiful setting. This is
I have
wonderful.
very many waters, I apologize.
And in addition to the projects that Robert and I are working on, two of which, one is the documentary Kinship on the Mormons and the Jewish people that we've been developing for some time. And then the Tuca TV, the children's satellite TV channel in the Farsi language for Iran and Afghanistan that we're developing. We just had this morning a video conference with a couple of our Iranian partners in LA and Washington, preparing to help us. We were trying to get all of our ducks in a row because we did get a green light from general authorities to talk again to BYU TV about collaborating on this, and so we were asking interest in your faith and prayers as we try to get that going. Hopefully be able to create a platform that ultimately will enable us to take the gospel to people in the Middle East. And that's a pretty exciting project.
Yeah, I actually had a company reach out to me about a week or two ago that does translations. And Farsi language is one that they cover.
Good, well, let's talk about that. That'd be great. Now,
Do you happen to know Dan Peterson at BYU?
yeah.
Okay, good. He's got a lot of contacts.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that I could really use some help on, which has nothing to do with film production. I woke up one morning a week or several days ago with an idea for a game. And one of the closest things I found, I went down to DI and found this Prophets card game. And it has a series of cards where you do some trading and whatever, kind of like go fish with the card game. One that was kind of interesting as I looked at it, this prophet dedicated the land of China for the preaching of the gospel. He also played on the University of Utah's first official football team. In his first decade as a prophet, the number of missionaries quadrupled. And during his tenure as prophet, the annual number of converts went from 12,000 to 180,000 a year. Anybody want to guess?
That'd be Hinckley.
David McKay.
Oh, David, okay.
Wow.
Now, the game that I want to do is
He went to
called,
the U.
is based on the need for it comes out of the fact that there are many people and a lot of youth leaving the church now because they get hit with, they're blindsided with questions, hard questions about doctrine, history, whatever, that they've never had taught to them in primary or church, Sunday school class or seminary. And so it blows them away and they end up leaving the church. And so this question, or this game is designed to perhaps remedy that. Because for every hard question that's out there, whether it's Joseph Smith's polygamy or horses in the Book of Mormon or whatever, there is an answer. And usually a very well-documented answer. But the idea of where to go to find that is something that most people don't have access to or don't know how to do that. And so what I was thinking of is a game where on one side of the card, you would have the hard question. And on the other side of the card, you would have a short answer. And then you have maybe a QR code or something that you could use to lead you to the more detailed research or whatever. And it would be a means of sort of encapsulating in easy little tidbits the answers to a lot of the hard questions. And the title of it comes from the 1 Peter 3:15, where it says, always ready to give an answer to any man who asks you for the hope that's in you. And the title for it is Ready Answers. And so I've come up with about 100 or so initial questions for the cards. And I'll get about 25 or so that I'll get the answers done for. But what I need is what came with this also. This is the how to play the game. And my question is, what I need help with is how to turn this into a game. What kind of rules do you have? How do you score it? How do you put it together? So anybody who might, have some ideas to help me turn it into a game.
Say, have you considered going an app, like a trivia app route?
Now, you're gonna have to go online if you won't.
That's a possibility, although the idea of physically having it in your hand is good. So you might, a way to combine both might be, there would be an app, because if we have the QR codes, it would be related to the game. So really both.
Yeah, a lot of these trivia apps are fairly popular. I mean, and if you got kids playing trivia apps, this sounds bad, but during like Priest did, when a lot of them are on their phones anyway.
Like the Jackbox type ones.
Yeah, I'm just saying an app might be a really great approach.
Yeah, definitely would have an app associated with it. It's just, how do you play the game? That's the question.
Yeah.
So anybody with any ideas for that?
Are you guys familiar with Book of Mormon Central and Book of Abraham Central?
Yeah, I work for them.
Oh, you have? They're moving out on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
I wonder almost whether there's a way where to do it. This is a little bit more sophisticated kind of a game where they would have to go off and look at that and then come back and say it. So they say an answer.
I almost see it like an achievement thing, and you get levels,
Yeah.
but that's like an app.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking an app, like a trivia app where you actually level up and things like that.
but I'm thinking if it would be the sort of thing, ideally, you'd play it in a seminary class or Sunday school class.
It's like shoots and ladders.
Or even in family home meeting or whatever, but it's an idea. It's where you would bring out and put on the table all these hard questions that don't usually get discussed in Sunday school or whatever.
That's awesome.
And yet the answers are there, they're available. It's just that most people don't know where to find them. And so I think it would be a great benefit.
Sort of like if you go to one and you have the ready answer, that's fine, then you get to go on. And you get stopped if you don't have that ready answer. And then I don't know how you would hook it up with a deeper answer. You get more points for a deeper answer. I don't know, after looking at something.
Yeah, I don't know how to gamify it.
I got a couple of books that you might be interested in. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, just get with me if you have some ideas. I'd really much appreciate it.
Just almost also generate just a game based on teams.
Yeah.
Two teams going against each other, almost like a spelling bee.
Yeah.
With trivia. I mean, it's been done before. There's tons of games out there that do it for family games and things like that, but it would be really fun content to do.
And I think you'd have to have some way of evaluating the answer. I know I used to play a game a lot called Common Knowledge, where you would ask a question that should be common knowledge, but you want it hard enough that not everybody's going to know the answer, and yet everybody agrees that it should be common knowledge. So at some point, a person, you ask the question, somebody gives an answer, then you have to
Decide whether
have
that answer.
a way to decide whether the answer is good enough or valid enough.
How to operate a rotary phone.
And with questions like this, for example, you know, how can you believe Joseph Smith is a prophet when he married a 14-year-old girl? What's the answer to that?
Well, the answer to that is historically, girls were finished with high school when they were 12. Getting married because your lifespan was a lot shorter. That was not an uncommon thing at that time. That was not something strange Joseph did. It was a part of the culture everywhere.
Yeah. In that particular case, it was Helen Moore Kimball, and there's a whole story about that, you know, and everything. But anyway, so the process of evaluating the answers is somehow got to be, you know, put into the thing.
Yeah.
So, but that's
Well, sounds like we've got another good subcommittee.
You could do multiple choice answers, multiple choice answers.
By the way,
We're in the game division now.
So it's not totally foreign to filmmaking, because you look at a lot of the major studios in LA, they're doing games along with
As
films.
movies,
Yeah.
Well, both directions, but
Yeah.
they'll gamify a story plot.
Yeah.
Although the WGA did just shaft the video game writers on their awards and recognitions recently, but
Literally.
yeah, it's political, but as most things are.
Yes.
Well,
James.
James Dalrymple, I missed the last couple meetings because I was out of town, and it's good to be back and
we forgive you.
see all of your almost
Happy faces.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of the writing process on a script, but I have a completed script that I would love to have a couple of things to help me with. One, I would love Amy to have you do your magic and just kind of before I'm ready to start putting it out there and making the movie. But before I do that, I'd love to do some detailed analysis.
It's kind of why I brought these two in, because,
Yeah, so I have your contact, so
okay.
I'll give you a call this week. That's one. I'd love to have someone who's interested in, I want to direct a film. I'd love to have someone who's interested in producing the film also. So, you know, if you're interested or want to take a look at it, I'll send you the script. Those are the two things that I have. The third thing that I have on my 4 agenda items for my part is, if any of you play pickleball, I was playing pickleball the other morning and I have a partial, I think, tear of my Achilles, and so I have to leave at 1:15. So if you guys are talking and I get up and I walk out, it's not because I don't like what you're saying. It's 'cause I have to go in for an MRI this afternoon.
That's
See if it's
Playing
torn.
pickleball?
That's what I said.
Old people are supposed to be able to play
That's what I
pickleball.
said.
No injuries.
So I got up at 6:30, I rolled out of bed and I didn't warm up and I'm playing, and as I'm hitting the ball, felt like somebody hit me in the back of the leg with a baseball bat. And I turned around and I said, what? Who did that? And it was the ghost, because I was over there. So I'm getting the MRI. So that's,
Well, I'm sorry, you'll probably miss my outlining section.
I'm
That'll
going
be
to.
on video. That's right.
Okay, but my 4th item for this group, for this meeting, corresponds a little bit with what David, you sent out in an email last night. And that is, I still don't really understand what we are. And I don't understand who or why we are.
We don't either.
It's just fun.
We need to produce things.
I love to sit around and talk about it, but twice a month in the middle of the day is not as easy for me as, you know, if it was once a month in an evening, we got together and we had a speaker that came or did an outlining workshop. And so I don't know exactly how this is fitting in. And so that's my 4th agenda. I'm just going to throw that out there, and you guys can go along, and then when I leave, you can talk about it or whatever. But
That's great.
We did have some discussion on it when you were not here, but
the main gist of it here is that we are creators, all of us, and each of us mostly writing and directing. And we can benefit greatly from each other's resources, thinking, suggestions, involvement. And we're sensing our way through all of this. But let's do it with the goal of creating great films, and making an impact on our audiences. And it's all about the audience. It's all totally focused on the audience.
So let's pool all of our resources and, you know, see what we can create. We've got great story writers, we've got great talent, right? I mean, that's what you're saying.
Well, and Robert, I agree that, you know, they talk about doctors practicing medicine and lawyers practicing law, and I think as filmmakers, we practice our craft every time we make a film. And our aspirations generally are to make great films, but in many respects, any film that gets made, there's some miracle involved that got that film made. And it's just as hard to make a bad film as it is to make a good film. And a lot of that goodness versus greatness versus badness is resident in the craft of the individual filmmaker. And so I'm reluctant, I used to look at films, and I have mentioned, I think in one of the meetings here, some pejorative terms about some films. That film wasn't a very good film, or I thought that film was terrible. And I'm less inclined to say that about filmmakers that make films that I personally don't think are very good films, because they had choices to make, and they had constraints, and they had issues that somehow resulted in the outcome. But they're out there doing it, and whether it's a bad film or whether it's a good film, they made the effort. You know what? They learned some things. And so I don't like to say anymore good or bad. I mean, okay, when it comes to a filmmaker's work, my hat's off to anybody that makes a film. And is there a way that I can help them, or is there a way that they could improve their craft? But even more specifically, every time I make a film, whether it's I have money or I have no money, I learn something about it, and I learn something about where my personal shortcomings are. And so from this group, I think that it's really helpful for me to hear your experiences and to see, you know, oh, we made this film, and, you know, we might sit around and look at the film and say, well, you know, I don't, that was not very good acting, or why did you direct it that way, or what happened, or this is awesome. How did it come about that way, and what are the things that you learned from that? That would be really helpful for me, because I have blind spots in my skill set that when I'm on set as a director, in most of the cases, they're dramatically exposed. I learn I have a blind spot there, and I need to be more aware of that. So anyway, that's my 2 minutes.
And that's a great description of what it is we're here for as well.
Well, we should do lunch sometime and chat, because I can talk about that all day.
Yeah, I'd love to. Love to.
And you know, several decades ago, there was a guy named George who was able to convince a studio to give him $9.5 million, which he didn't think was nearly enough, but he went and shot a film with it. And it was lousy. It was really lousy. And so he called his friend Stephen and his friend Brian in, and a couple others, and said, what do you think of this? And they said, this sucks. And Brian especially had a lot of ideas and suggestions. They threw out a bunch of stuff, repurposed a bunch of stuff, because they already shot it, and ended up with some long shots and other things that they wrote new dialogue with just voiceover stuff, bring the guys in front of the microphone. And they made Star Wars into a decent film after that because of that. But it's that very process here. What George said is, wouldn't it be great if we'd have all got together when it was in written form before filming, and then we'd have an even better film. But that's the essence of what we're doing.
Pixar uses their brain trust for very similar.
Yeah.
Very
I feel like we
similar
are a brain trust on a different level.
Well, and I think that's awesome. And I'm all in favor of that. The practical aspect of executing that is not easy. And
that's what we're engaged in here.
Right. And so, you know, I think that's where maybe some some brain trust thought could go into how do we, like I've been in several writers groups as a screenwriter and as a novelist, and I've been in some good ones where the moderator was able to keep things moving along, and I've been in some ones where it turned into, after a few weeks where everybody's friends, it was more of a social
Lord of the Flies.
you spend 3 hours and you get through 3 pages and it doesn't really help. And so for me, I'm interested in contributing. I'm interested in receiving some benefits in my own work and improving my craft and helping others to improve their craft. But I also really value efficiency in terms of doing that. And this particular, for me, probably only me, but this particular configuration, we've just run out of an hour and I have to go. And so I'm going to miss all of it, if that makes any sense at all.
You're in a pickle.
I am. Wow. Thank you. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'm going to put my mask back on and shut up, and I'm going to have to go in 15 minutes, so sorry guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm still doing my research on my movie, the script. I'm interested in the outlining portion today, and because that's the next step, is really to outline. I have the bare bones idea, and then, it's about the guy making the documentary, and it's a film about a guy making the documentary. And so we're still in that process.
Wait,
it's what?
It says, sounds familiar.
Oh, yeah, Kels, I've been reading your script. Mine's totally different.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It really is.
That's what TC told me.
So if somebody compliments you on your film, your honest answer would, they say, thank you for making such a great film, your honest answer would be my plagiar.
No, it's a totally different story. I told you the bare bones of the story, and it's been developing, it's pretty good. It's been in my head for like 5 years, so now I just got to get it in script form. And that's good that we have a lot of story, and that's the help that I will be needing. Go ahead.
One of the things, the LDSPMA has one of their master classes is on, screenwriting.
I have got like every screenwriting book, I've read them all. I've taken like 3 or 4 screenwriting workshops.
I honestly think they could pull from us for teaching.
Yes. Yeah, that we need to.
Well, I think it's the best thing is just get it out on paper,
Right.
even if it sucks.
Right.
And then from there, then you can.
Because writing's rewriting.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote a script in 12 days once, and so I figure I can do it again. If I can write. It's all up here. I'm trying to get a good outline of it, and of course it's controversial, so I got to figure that out too towards the end.
Well, that's what Kel said. You can't polish a turd until you make one.
So that's where I'm at, and then of course working at commercials and with Doug, and we're excited because we're getting more and more calls all the time of people wanting to use our studio. We just did a Studio C, that project. They shot a couple skits there. We got some more calls from Kaleidoscope and even other possible. This is just a possible puppet show that they want to produce for BYU. So they're going to try to. So anyway, these are just things that are happening on the side. Since we've opened up our studio and trying to rub shoulders with filmmakers, we're really excited about all the connections that we're making. This is a connection. Yeah. Each of you are making connections now over the last, how many meetings have we had? 4 or 5?
I've been singing your praises everywhere.
Thanks, we'll give you a commission. No. But anyway, Doug will probably talk a little bit more about our film division of our company. So we're still doing the commercials on the side, but we want to develop the film division. So that's where we're at.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's great. I'm Garrett, and let's see, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we just updated you on a project that we're still getting ready to shoot. We're,
Stoked for it.
what's that?
Stoked for it.
Yeah, we're on board for going to Texas. Who knows if that's gonna pan out in the next 2 weeks, with all the.
When do you go, Gary?
The 13th, when we're supposed to shoot.
When you say you don't know if it's gonna pan out, you mean like a pandemic out? Or?
Yeah.
Whether all the actors are gonna be looking like
Yeah.
It's gonna be weird.
Texas is kind of a hot spot right
So
now.
let's say
When was this filmed? I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
2020.
Yeah.
How long is your shoot?
It's 4 days. So not long, and we're out kind of in the boonies, so we're not.
Exteriors.
Everybody will arrive, and we'll just keep everybody on set for 4 days and keep them close by. But yeah, so we're casting right now and finding some great options.
So when you say roll, you say last looks, masks off,
Yeah, that's
demask, action.
We'll have the crews and everything wearing masks. It'll be really interesting. This will be my first shoot in kind of this post-COVID or current COVID era. So yeah, we'll all be masked up.
I'll be curious to see how that goes. I was actually listening to a showrunner for a TV show that said they finally broke down and figured out how much longer all of that runs, all their stuff. And he said for about every 3 to 4 days, add a whole day of shooting.
Oh, is that right?
They've seen, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I just figured out what a showrunner is.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll be able to bring back a report then. As far as the purpose of the group, I mean, I was kind of like you, James, trying to figure that out, and then I was just kind of thinking about as far as what I need. Maybe this ties into that. I think I need to continue to listen to your experiences and stories. I feel like right now, where we're not running forward in a direction, this is almost like a medical journal, where you're reading the experiences of research of others and gleaning from that, saying, okay, I'm going to apply this. And I think Robert's presentation 2 weeks ago is still kind of percolating in my mind. I think there's a lot of good storytelling and experiences just among the group, and we can pull little nuggets and apply and use those. Some of the scriptures you referred to, or again, I can go back and research. So that's what I need to do, is just kind of keep coming and hearing your experiences and stories. I think there's a lot of value in that. So thanks for putting this on.
A true story from about the 1970s, I think, or so. There were a group of doctors, and I don't remember where this was. I think it might have been Houston. Just a group of MDs who were kind of older, but they were still practicing still. And they would get together once a month or so, some evening, and just kind of chat and talk about failures, just privately. Nobody else would hear this, and say, I had a patient, and this, and this, and I thought this, and I diagnosed, and they died, and here's what happened, and then postmortem showed this and such. And then, but I'm still not sure. And then they kind of group and say, well, I think it might have been this, I think it might have been that, I think that, did you check on this? And one time, one of the group there was explaining something, and I don't know, I don't know what happened. It's just a big problem, and here's the symptoms and such. And they, well, did you check this? What about that? I think it might have been. Turns out, one of them said, the only thing I can think of that would really fit all of the symptoms you described is maybe they were eating fish and they swallowed a bone or something, and it was intestinal perforation or something. And that doctor got up and said, they haven't died yet. I'm running to the hospital. So it saved a life.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the essence of what we're doing. One of the films I did for BYU Studios early in my career, Bob Stum was the producer, if anybody knows him. And Bob Stum, and he afterwards said, let's all meet and have a post-mortem. And it was great, because there were a lot of really helpful comments.
Well, I think we're having a pre-postmortem.
Yeah, I mean, it's pre-mortem. It's going, I would love to see maybe once a month and whatever's presented, just written up in an essay. And by the end of the year, we've got 12 essays of great insights and neat things we can distribute and read and or blog or whatever. Yeah. I also need to know where you play pickleball, because our state shut down. I don't have a place to
Well,
go.
they just opened up a new park on Harvey Boulevard in Cedar Hills. It's beautiful. They've got lots of courts and.
Okay, well, that transitions,
I'm gonna
that-
have one here.
that
There's one
transi-
right by my house in Orem.
that transition's perfect, because I'm building a tennis and pickleball center.
Needs fulfilled. Needs fulfilled.
Right there next to the Infomercials Inc. building will be a big 45,000 square foot building with 5 indoor tennis courts, 4 indoor pickleball courts, but one of the tennis courts is a flex court, so you could go up to 8 pickleball courts, depending on volume. Outside, we'll have the same thing, 5 more tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts with a flex court, so you can go back and forth between tennis and pickleball. And so that's, unfortunately, I haven't done a lot of work on the movie I'm working on, because my spare time has been trying to get this thing going. Maybe another 30 days and it'll be off my plate and on the builder's plate. But hopefully we'll break ground in about between 30 and 60 days from now, we'll break ground on that thing.
Oh, that's great.
So, fills a big need. The tennis center that I play at, because I'm a tennis player, shut down. The old building, they're making high density housing there now. And that displaced 250 of my friends who play tennis, who no longer have a place. And people have bombarded me with pickleball requests, so there we go. It's happening, and it'll start pretty soon.
Wow, that'd be great.
Well, I won't be playing there for at least.
It's time to take time to build. That's right, okay.
It's time to build. When
Get
it's done,
yourself
I'll be there.
better.
Sign me up.
Fun to see you over there.
You need to have your Achilles heel edited.
I do, absolutely, yeah, we've got to splice it back together.
That's right, that's right. Last Friday, I edited my lawn.
Wow.
So,
You're a real cut, I can tell you
Is
that.
it your Achilles heel that's damaged?
I think it's
Snap.
the connection between the Achilles and the calf muscle.
Oh, okay.
it's upper, not
It happened to me.
I snapped my Achilles.
The doctor said it's like
I don't
sewing
recommend
2
it.
mop ends together strand by strand.
Oh,
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad.
I'm really nervous.
It wasn't too
To
bad.
say, way to prep him for his appointment.
He was much better than.
We're trying to be held.
It was much better than an ACL.
Good luck, James.
Hello, James.
Good luck, James.
So, pleasure to meet you.
It's not bad.
okay, give me a call. Saying goodbye.
Yeah, we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
You need to meet
We'll
my
talk
business
later
partner.
about-
He's a really good producer.
Awesome.
So I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, everybody.
When
And,
business was.
Good night to you.
Sorry to miss your invitation.
It'll be food,
Yeah.
and I like the idea of dancing.
Provo Bright Center.
What?
I see you over the Bright Center.
That might be, there's 2 Rob Anderses
Okay.
that do a bunch of stuff, and they found out they're related.
Okay.
They got pictures of themselves on the same film set that they finally crossed paths on. But yeah.
So Doug,
Cut you off, Doug, sorry.
Oh, no, I just, so that's been a little bit of distraction for me, but as soon as I pass the project off to the builders, then I'll be back on the film thing. And I'm excited, I'm gonna finish that film, that first film. If I can't make money on that first film, it's doubtful I'll be able to do the other 3, but I'm convinced we're gonna do it in a way that's gonna make money. I'm very anti critic, elitist type movies. I want a movie for the people. I want a commercial movie. I want a movie that's gonna bring in revenue, that's gonna make money, that's gonna allow me to make other movies. I'm not gonna make it for myself. I'm not gonna make it for critics. I'm gonna make it for the people. So I know a lot of film students are like, well, that's prostituting yourself to try to make money on a movie. No. No, I'm gonna make money on the movie.
I just have.
Well, that's such a good point. I don't mean to interrupt you, Doug, but that's such a good point because I don't know if anybody went to the film festival when we did the distribution panel, because, yes, right, you were there, heckling in the back.
Quiet.
And it was, I honestly walked away from a 2-hour distribution panel a little like dissuaded.
Yeah.
It was really hard. I more like did that because I thought, okay, I'm a filmmaker. We struggle for the financial side of it. I want to know what the answer is, or what are some answers. And I walked in there with the guys who I thought had the answers, and walked out thinking
They don't.
nobody had the answer.
Not me, though.
And I thought, okay, I'm done with LDS cinema. Who wants a festival? It's up for sale. I'm just kidding. No, but I just feel like the answers just don't seem to be, not that they're perfect, not that there aren't bad moments, not that there aren't, some going higher than others and others not as well, but I feel like it's like this, I feel like, everything you make, you just may as well expect to lose money. And that's just an attitude that I feel like, because it's in the heart, and it's in the soul, and it's such a balance that you have to be able to have. You've got to have the heart, but you also got to make the money, and you have to find that balance that we just don't seem to have. And after that distribution panel, I just remember thinking, does anybody else have some answers?
If you'll want, my producer can come here and specifically talk about that, because that's what he's been focusing on
Yeah.
for the last few years. And that's what we're doing with our Greenland films. We've approached distributors and Jason Fowler and Aerostar Entertainment, and we started working with them beforehand to make sure the film was sellable before we even got funding for it. So
Yeah, so I know that's the big issue, is sellable, like you're saying, that's
right,
selling.
yeah,
Gotta be sellable.
because
Commercial.
Dogs.
Yeah,
Commercial.
something you're gonna sit on a Friday night and watch, you're not gonna watch just because you're friends with the director, but or you're doing them a favor by watching it, but that you actually wanna watch.
target audience, genre, distribution, like all those things play into it. You can have $100 million film, make $80 million and be a disaster, but if that was a $20 million film, that's a box office. It's
And the beautiful thing about it is people pay the same $7 or $8 for the $20 million film as they do for the $100 million film.
But yeah. So if you all are interested, I can talk to them about that.
Yeah.
Let's do. We have an
And
opening
beforehand-
4 weeks from today.
4 weeks from today?
Yes.
I'll see if he's available.
And
So he
you-
might replace me. I might be in a hospital at that time.
Coronavirus?
Not Achilles tendon or anything like that, baby. So.
You're gonna have a baby.
Congratulations, you're pregnant.
Can't you tell?
So actually, I'm delighted to
Sympathy
hear,
pregnancy.
Doug, I'm delighted to hear what you said and all of this, because honestly, I think people who are the elitist kind of thinking, I want to make something that's just artsy and all that. Well, we do want to do artful things, yes. But if they're not making it for reaching people, reach as many as you can, and yes, you have to be in genre and focused on audiences, of course, but if they're not trying to reach people as far and wide as they can, that's selfish. That's ridiculous. And it's
It's defrauding your investors.
Exactly, it's dishonest to your investors. And that is the crucial thing, that we have to be taking care of our investors, or we're not going to have any more films.
It's a huge problem. I just got in an argument on Facebook with someone the other day because they said something along the lines to me of, well, who wants to make money in films anyways? I was like, excuse me? Don't we all want to make money on the film?
If you're gonna finance a film with your own money, then you can make whatever film you want.
It's a responsibility.
Right.
Or if you just want to make one film in your lifetime, go ahead.
Yeah,
But if you want to keep making movies, you want to
If
make
you want a
money.
career, if you want to make a living off
Yeah.
of it, if you want to support.
Well, and the bottom line is reaching audiences, reach them.
Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
What's my name?
What's your movie about?
Oh, the movie is called Dark Highway. It's a thriller. It's edge of your seat thriller, nonstop. You're on the edge of the seat. You're shaking in your seat. That kind of thing.
You've got a good beginning for that.
Yeah,
You got a lot of good things going for you.
good.
Well, there were some elitist filmmakers that used to refer to Universal Studios as the studio that made picks for the hicks and the sticks. But they made those picks, and the Hicks and the Sticks paid money, and they made money.
Yep.
The film, I want to give people a fun roller coaster ride. I want to stimulate tons of emotion. I want to get those serotonin levels up there. I want to give them an escape for between 90 and 120 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, if I could make people feel like the way that I felt sitting in the theater during Inception when that car rolled and the gravity shifted in the hotel room. Dream fulfilled. Like, that moment was just amazing.
And I got two Dougs here, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't get last names.
Boyd, B-O-Y-D, and
We work together, so it's Doug Squared is what
Doug
it's
and Doug.
And your last name was?
Fox, F-O-W-K-E-S.
Got 2 Dougs and 2 Roberts.
Yeah.
Doug Squared, Robert.
I thought we have 2 girls.
Yeah, we need another day.
Anything else?
No, I'll, like I say, temporary break from the film, but I'll be back on it next month, and I want to get that script looked at. There's a few things, a few areas that can be improved in it. We shot 10 minutes of it already, so I just wanted to make sure that we could do it. We could do it with our own equipment
Have you,
and our own crew.
is Melanie Stone playing for you?
I don't know that,
I was just gonna say, I think Amy showed me a
Yes.
clip of Dark Highway. Melanie Stone
is
was in there.
is she the one that was in the Aerostorm?
Yeah, I've worked with Melanie for
Yeah.
years and years and years. That's why I
Okay,
was
yeah.
curious.
She the blonde or the brunette?
Burnett.
The brunette, the one that sits in the front.
The one that sits in the
Okay.
front with the glasses,
Oh, okay.
the glasses in this one, she
Yeah,
was in
she's
the
in
Aerostorm.
Aerostorm films.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was the star of that one.
Yeah, Mythica 1 through 5.
Mythica.
Oh,
And then-
she's the star?
She's playing in a bunch of other ones that
Oh, cool.
Aerosmith's
Yeah, I
done
know.
in different
Yeah, that's
roles.
her. That's her then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she played Survivor for John Lyde,
Oh,
not the
okay.
lead, but the lead's best friend, and
Yeah,
yeah, I'm good friends with her for a long time. I was just curious because I recognized some stuff going on.
that's her. Now, we started off, those actors were, could possibly be replaced. All those interiors were shot in our studio. Easily, the exteriors would keep, the interiors we're gonna reshoot possibly with name actors. So we weren't sure if those were gonna be, and we're still not sure if those are gonna be the actors. We might reshoot the interiors. But, so I don't know for sure if she'll be in the final or not.
Well, I was gonna say, small world.
Yep.
So-
Film world is a small world.
Yeah.
Doug, it wasn't the idea to do that to help for the raising, the fundraising?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, the idea was always to help with fundraising, but also just, I wanted to know if we could do it. We used all our own equipment. We didn't rent any equipment except for, we rented
Condor.
a Condor to get the lights up high, but we did everything with our own equipment. Oh, we had to rent some cables because we needed longer lengths. That's it. I wanted to make sure we had what it took to do it. We had our own crew, is the core group that filmed it, and we brought in just a few outside people to help, but I wanted to see if we could really do it or not, and do it effectively, efficiently, and cost effectively and everything. And we could, so I'm like, okay.
Is there a way we could see that clip that yeah, apparently you showed it before the first
Oh,
session.
yeah, there's.
Well, I sent it out to
I wish I had a
people.
drone.
Can you send it out to everybody?
Yeah,
I'd like to see it.
That'd be nice.
And Rocco DeVille,
Rocco is the director. Rocco de Villiers, does everybody know Rocco de Villiers? Very outstanding director. was
he
the
also
director.
shot one of your commercials with the skateboard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he shot out several of our.
Turbo Pack.
Turbo Pat.
Turbo
Yeah.
Pack.
Worth looking at.
Yeah, he shot several of our commercials. We developed something called movie commercials. They're like commercials, but they're like
Little movies.
movies.
That's
and they're
cool.
commercials.
Yeah,
So-
I'd like to know a list of those and then watch every one of
Yeah,
those.
they're pretty good.
We got more.
Okay,
we got two
yeah, if you could get us a list of those
Okay.
ones and then we'll.
I can give you the links to our YouTube. We're gonna have a webpage though, very shortly.
Okay.
So we can give you the webpage of our company and you can click on them and see all the movie commercials we've done. We've done several.
Okay, cool. Interesting.
Okay.
Good, thank you, Doug.
Uh-huh.
And now, Randy.
We had Nick come in late, how about we have him
Oh, yeah.
go real quick?
Yeah.
I don't have too much to say. I was gonna say that what you're talking about, not prostituting yourself, and that this mindset still drives me crazy. And it's exactly what Dave was going up against when he started LTUE and Leading Edge magazine, is that the literary group didn't want to do it because it was not artsy. Yeah, well, it was not artsy and stuff, and it's like, and over
It
the
was read by
last,
volunteers.
Yeah.
We don't want art like that.
Yeah.
We want art that needs a prophet who
Yeah.
will interpret
Yeah.
it for you.
we don't want things
That's
that
what
massive
university
dirty
is
and
like.
Harry and Wash can't watch without help.
Being against prostituting yourself
But-
in film is against the very fundamental foundation of my.
But he's been at this almost 40 years, and there has been a whole total mindset. There's been a lot of other influence on it, but there has been a bit of a mindset change in books and literature and stuff like that, and Leading Edge helped with that. And it's the same kind of thing that, one of the things that I think our group should help with is to help change that mindset. It's like, it's not wrong to make money on a movie. It's like, how are you gonna make the next one? You know, and it's like you talked about many times.
It's a matter of
like,
integrity.
Bad movies take that money that good movies can make, so it's like, well, let's make movies that make money, kind of things. Anyway, I'm working on a lot of things with a number of people in here, and I need to get them a little bit further along before I talk too much about it. But there's some pretty cool stuff that I've got going. I'll talk about in a few weeks or a month maybe.
Love your stories from Ireland. Yeah.
Thank you.
One other thing, the whole mindset of, whoa, how about that? The whole mindset of making a film that is not intended or not going to reach a large audience is really selfish. It absolutely is a selfish thing to do. And I think it might have been James who was telling me afterwards, a month or so ago, that he was on a panel, or maybe it was somebody else here, on a panel discussion several years ago, and one of the filmmakers there, I won't say his name, but everybody would know who he is here, and probably know him personally, but he had made some comment, and somebody said, well, that doesn't sound like that's very commercial. He said, I don't care about the audience, I make films for me. And he hasn't made films for a while. So the integrity is you reach out as far as you reasonably can. And I think part of our whole friendship here and discussion among each other is to say, here we have something in this genre that I think might reach some people. How can we amplify this? Make it better, make it reach people. I like to use that term because, yeah, we want to have everybody in the entire world, 8 million people watch this movie. Well, that's not going to happen because some of them are little kids and certain people like certain genres, yes. But let's reach as far as we reasonably can. Inclusiveness. And I like to reach people, I reach in their minds and in their hearts. Emotionally. That's what we want to do, by reach people. And let's all help each other to do that.
So one more thing before I shut up. So I'm the track head for theater and media arts for LTUE for 2021. And I've worked with some of the others in here on the LTUE stuff before too. But I would like for you guys to think about possibly doing something. We may have to do it like online, a streaming type thing, but it might be an interesting session to have a discussion, like a giant panel about making money on film. So like, I'm just brainstorming with the idea. I've got most of my track and the program and the classes, panels, presentations worked out, but keep it in mind for the next, for maybe our next meeting. If anybody has a really great idea of how we could put something like that together, that we could either film ahead of time, record it ahead of time, or stream it live during one of these discussions like this, we could possibly do something like that. I'm just toying with ideas.
Very good. Brandon.
So I've actually got a bunch of fun stuff rolling up right now. We just finished an export of an almost finished feature, but we sent it out to the distributor last night, and they're going to look at that to see about how sellable it is. Whether it's sellable.
Farm and the Beast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a question of whether it's sellable. I actually don't know how much I can talk about it, but basically they're hoping it's good enough because they want to put it on a specific track to make a lot more money. But the quality has to hit about twice of what our budget was. So they're going to look at that and let us know. And then we're actually almost done writing the script for the follow-up to that in that series, the second film. And then we are also working on forming a company/group of about 10 filmmakers. We all went to kind of BYU and made films together. And what we're doing is we're just pulling all of our bodies, talents, resources, and everything to make just really low budget, kind of marketable films that's really just there for us to do between our funded projects, our big projects, just so that we can keep shooting and keep doing things and experimenting and learning while also making money on the side and building up our assets, like our equipment and gear and portfolio and whatnot. So
Do you need a studio?
and actually, in terms of needs, studio might be something that we look at. We probably don't have any money for something like that. We're actually looking for investors within about anyone that's willing to put in about $5,000 to get it off the ground for each of the projects. But that's something that we'll probably be able to raise ourselves, but I figured this group would be a good group to present that to and see if we can maybe network or find some people to be willing to invest and kind of exercise that muscle a little bit. But those are all kind of the projects and stuff that we're kicking in right now. Yep.
Good. Let's hear your presentation.
All right, presentation time.
Are you going to use the whiteboard?
I'm going to use the whiteboard, so you might want to
So we can all
move the camera so that poor James can actually follow it.
Your name was?
Brandon.
Anytime you see me wear shoes.
Oh, Brandon.
That's why I said you have not prostituted yourself is against the fundamental nature of my name.
One holy man.
I'm a pope. All right, so I'm actually really excited to do this kind of presentation for all of you. Outlining is something that's actually, I feel like, pretty personal. There's all kinds of different ways that people do it. You can do your story beats on flashcards and rearrange them on whiteboards. Do a lot of different things. There's lots of books that put out all kinds of different structures and narratives and things like that you can or should follow. But I feel like, and this is someone who studied media arts and narrative structure was my major, I feel like the issue with a lot of film analysis and breaking down stories and scripts and things like that is that it starts at the end. They take a complete product and they say, ooh, this is why it works, or this is why it doesn't work. But I don't think that it does a really good job of saying, hey, if you have this kernel of an idea, this is how you build it out, and this is how you move through your story. And so, for me, the outline that I found that really works well was something that I heard from another writer on a podcast that intrigued me. And then I just started kind of expounding on it. But basically, the way it works is you're going to create what I call the story tree. And basically, the story tree is going to follow, basically, it's a rule of threes. And so the way that it works is you start off with your most basic idea. A lot of people talk about like the synopsis or just what is your story, your elevator pitch. But basically, if you take your story and summarize it in a single paragraph or a single sentence, that's where you start with your outline. And then what's going to happen is you then work that through, and you're going to break it into 3 parts. And so we can probably start with something simple that hopefully everyone's seen. Star Wars, I think, is a popular one. Everyone's familiar with Star Wars. So if you were to summarize Star Wars in a nutshell, how would you say that? A New Hope. We'll go with A New Hope, not the 6, or no, the 9 series, including television shows and everything else. But any takers out here?
It's the hero's journey.
Hero's journey.
Simple.
Yeah, so if you were to say, go a little bit more direct into what's the hero's journey for Luke?
Hero's journey for Luke, basically, his world is a status quo, and then ultimately something comes in and shatters it. He declines the call to be a hero up front.
Yep.
It's important to do that for the hero's journey. And then ultimately, something even more cataclysmic has to kind of set the nails in the coffin, so to speak, so that he takes up the call. And ultimately, it's good versus evil, and it's him working his way up to where he can take on Vader, and we've got these side adventures to gain the people and the skills that he needs to be able to get there.
Okay, so we can say Luke is an unwilling hero.
Reluctant.
Unwilling hero, reluctant, who faces evil. Yeah, sorry. Faces evil. I'm not the best with chalkboards. Beginning, middle, end. And you're gonna sit there and say, okay, so if we dive deeper into this, what's that gonna be, right? Why is Luke the unwilling hero in the beginning? It could be something along the lines of Luke is stuck on farm, right? And then you can do something along the lines of, Luke's stuck on farm, and then it's something along the lines of receives and answers the rebellion's call. So we can say receive call of help. And then we can say answers called, defeats evil, right? So, you got something of a 3-act structure there. And as you go into a little bit more of those details, you start kind of, discovering like the smaller little nuances of things that you want to do. And you're like, oh, okay, so this is where he's going to start. This is where we're going to have some fun in the middle, but this is where we want the story to end. And then basically just keep going, right? So this one we're going to break into 3s, this one we're going to break into 3s, this one we're going to break into 3s, okay? And we won't write all this stuff down, but this basically becomes Luke's dad keeps him on the farm. He receives a message from Princess in Distress and goes on a journey with a sage wizard, right? And then it's captured by Death Star, discovers it's a planet destroyer, and hijacks plans and goes to the Rebel Alliance. And then you have the whole, enters the Death Star with all the flying ships. Ships are blowing up and everyone's dying. He answers the call of the Force and defeats evil, right? And then you just keep going, and with these points, and you just break them out, and you break them out, and you break them out. And what happens is, when I do my outlines, I go 5 deep all the way through on this process. So by the time I move from my synopsis, or just my single granular idea, I end up with something along the lines of 241 story beats. And what's really fun about that is that if you take 241 story beats, and each beat gives you roughly guidance for half a page of writing, that gives you 120 pages for your feature-length film, which is about where you want to be. Sometimes you're a little bit lower. We do a lot of romantic comedies, which is at about 90 pages. And, you know, you have larger epics like Godfather or Ben-Hur.
How many pages were you estimating on the beats?
Half a page per beat. And honestly, like once you get 4 deep, you start hitting the point where you get itchy. You're just like, ugh, like I just want to sit down and write this thing. And I ignore that because I am a masochist and I want to make it painful for myself. And I say, no, I'm not writing. I'm going deeper and I'm hitting that 241 beats. And basically what happens is once I'm there, then, you know, we're pushing, like, we're doing Snow White for this script that's coming up. And I think we started writing it about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and we're about 80 or 90 pages in. So it's a much quicker process once you sit down to start writing, because you have gone through this so much that you have your story really fleshed out, and the nuances of all those details are really thought through. And one of the reasons why I love this process is because sometimes, I don't know what it's like for all of you, but I'll get stuck on a beat. And if I'm stuck on a beat, then it derails me, like, completely. Where I'm just like, yeah, let me start doing that. And I'll jump down all these rabbit holes. And then 3 hours passes, and I learned a whole lot about, you know, the intricacies of the FBI during the times of Sam Cowley. But I don't have anything about Sam Cowley actually written down.
For your Snow White script.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Sam Cowley's in my Snow White script. What happens is if you get stuck on a beat, you can just go general. You know, if you're over here, you can write something along the lines of something bad happens to the protagonist, right? Or if you're sitting there and you're stuck on it and you're like, and you're going in all these different directions, it's really easy to just look back at the previous beat and say, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish here? And if you look at that previous beat, then you can say, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. So this section really should be doing this, and it kind of refocuses you so that you can get back on your story. And then what's also great is as you start going into the nuances of those details and figuring out those issues, it's really easy to be like, oh, like I found a nice little gem here, and I actually think that this is the important thing that I really should be focusing on for everything. It's really easy to just come back and rewrite that beat and then just do a small, like, one word or just a slight adjustment there. And you don't have to sit there and say, I wrote 30 pages. Like, I don't want to change that, because at this point you haven't written those pages. You don't have that emotional attachment. It keeps you much more open to experiment and to go in all those different directions and to weigh the pros and cons of the things they're doing. And as you go through and weigh everything within that realm of possibility, right, that's where you might find the spot that you land that is the possible best for your story, but you're not spending your time writing all of these different scenes out to be able to discover, oh, this all doesn't work because I was supposed to be here. Didn't you have
Your beats are just like one-liners then, basically.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
very,
basically.
Very general one-liners. I mean, they might be more specific to your story, but they're...
Yeah, when I do my beats, they usually stay between 1 to 3 sentences.
Okay.
If they go into 3 sentences, it's usually easy, because then that becomes my 3 beats on the next one down. I'm like, look at me, progress. But
That's cool.
But yeah, you keep it really short, really simple, and embrace just kind of being simple with it, because as you explore, just all the small little things as you get deeper and deeper. Once you get to that end, you've got something that's complex, that's nuanced, like all the details and everything are there, and you've processed it in a way that you are familiar with it and you know what to do. And what's great about this, and the reason why actually the first time that I tried this because I had a writing partner and we were writing a script together. And so we went through this process together to figure out our story. And then once we had our story figured out, we could say, okay, well, I want to write beats 100 through 120 right now. And I can jump in and I could write that while she's writing, 20 to 25. And the stuff that she does in 20 and 25 is not breaking 100 to 120. And so we can sit and write all of our different scenes and send them to each other and start blending everything together and not have to worry about the decisions that we're making on that page messing up the decision that the other writer's doing. And so it's actually a really great collaborative project. And so that is the basic story tree rule of threes that I follow when I do my outlining. And then just to let you know, one small variation that I've done is that I go 5 deep, but what I do is I'll start here, I'll go 3 deep, and then I'll do oh wait, that's right, 1, 2, and then I'll do like a 4. And so what you end up having this way is that your middle is a lot longer than your beginning and your end, because that's generally how it is in movies. Your catalyst doesn't necessarily happen 30 minutes into your 90-page script. And so usually we'll do that slight variation where we go 3, 4, 3, 3, because then we find that it gives us more to work with for our middle story and flesh that out. Because usually once we got to that end part, we started combining and shifting things around as we looked at our scripts and stuff that we've written out. And so that just kind of nips that in the bud there. So anyways, it's really simple, it's flexible, you can change it to kind of meet your needs or your own narrative structures or your own writing styles. But it's a great way to sit down when, who was it, James or Robert? Sorry, I'm everybody moves seats.
What did he say?
He had the kernel, the idea of the story, but he wasn't quite sure. Was it Doug?
It might be me, yeah.
Yeah. This is
I have the kernel.
Yeah, this is the great way because you can start here with the kernel now, and then you can just start outlining that and going on your 3 deep and just say, okay, so what's my beginning, what's my middle, what's my end?
Story too.
Brandon, does that, from an outline, do you make a treatment after that, or do you go right to the script writing?
It depends on what the needs are. I'm doing a story tree right now for a film that's currently titled Puppy Love. It's a romantic comedy about 2 people with puppies that go to obedience training school to fall in love with each other.
Cute.
And yeah, that's the little kernel, and I start going through on that, and we have Myriad Pictures is actually interested in Bookworm and the Beast, but Candlelight Media has first rights on it, and so they want to see the film even though they can't purchase the film because they're interested in what we're doing. And so that one I've been writing out with the story tree, but my producer asked me how long it would take for me to convert that into a treatment, and the answer is not very long because
It's already there.
Because it's all there, yeah. And you have, right, you kind of have your synopsis or your log line when you start, and then I can look over at this and I can be like, oh, that's like your kind of 1-page treatment or half-page treatment or whatever. Like it gives you the foundational work of your story that you can build everything off of.
Yeah.
So,
The final draft colored coded blocks are a great way to go with this.
yeah, I mean, if you want to start off black and go to blue and then have your 5 beat be green, you can do all of those different kind of things.
What are you using to track this? Is this, when I've done an outline in a spreadsheet or like writing.
Oh, yeah.
Are you using
So,
or some software?
because I started doing this collaborating with another screenwriter, we found that Google Docs works really well for us because then you can just have it all be paragraphed out. And we liked Google Docs because it showed changes live.
Yeah.
Like if she was on a computer and I was on a computer, we could sit there, we could chat with each other and be typing everything out. Or if we're separate, we can kind of see the things that other people are doing and we're just plugging everything and moving everything through and commenting on each other's work. So we found that to be really fluid. Along with Writer's Duet as a screenwriting software. Final Draft, at least when we were writing, didn't do a very good job in terms of
Collaborating.
The latest versions improved that a lot.
They have improved that a lot.
Yeah, I have the latest version. It's really good on there.
Yeah, I know that John August and Craig Mason from Script Notes have received many versions of Final Draft. They're very much against it, but they often slam it and tell it, the designers and people, all the things that it's doing wrong. And they said that they've been working really hard to fix all that, even though they don't use it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I use it every day. I just don't collaborate with it.
Right. Yeah, collaboration is like a whole different world. We jumped into like 5 or 6 different writing programs and found that we were inhibited a lot by just the program itself.
Is that a program, Writer's Duet?
Writer's Duet, yeah. And it's pretty good bang for your buck in terms of a 1-year subscription. Let's come over your question, then I'll jump back to Hiram.
Can you name all the screenwriting, what are all the screenwriting softwares that are out there? Or what?
I don't know, how many trees are there in the forest?
5. So what was there?
Oh, what
Final
were the
Draft.
5 that we were looking at?
No, there's Final Draft, there's, what are the other ones?
Celtex is the freeware version.
Celtics is the freeware version.
I've
Writers.
tried Subtext and it doesn't feel like it's very robust.
It can be. It's good if you're a poor college student and
Okay.
can't afford Final Draft.
Then there's,
Celtics,
Scripter?
Writers Duet, Scripter, Highland, I think is the one that Script Notes put out. I know a lot of people, I don't know if it's screenwriting software, but I know a lot of writers like to use, OneNote or something. The app isn't a picture of an elephant.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
Evernote.
Evernote, yeah.
Evernote, it's called Evernote?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how well it works for
Screenplay in that.
screenwriting, but it's one that we looked into for collaborating in terms of writing out our beats and stuff.
What's good about Evernote is you can have it on your phone and you can just dictate and it'll create text.
With a
Then you go to your computer and it's already synced up and you just edit it on your computer.
I've used Trello for outlining really well.
What's it called?
Trello.
Trello?
And I've done a full, this type of thing.
Yep,
Color coding the A story and B story and so forth. It's a good,
yep,
that's worked well.
yep. And, yeah, I am a huge fan of this process. I
This is
think
cool.
that it's worked really well all the times that I've tried it out. And for me, it helps me, I don't know if I necessarily believe in writer's block, but it helps me from getting stuck. Because if I'm stuck on a point, then I can just go really general and then move on to the next ones. And it's not hard to skip. Like if you've got these and you're just not sure what it is, or you're not even feeling like up for it, you're like, ugh, like it's the love scene and I just, my girlfriend just broke up with me, like I don't feel like writing that. Then you can go over to the conflict scene, right, where they yell at each other about how terrible they are. Yeah, the breakup scene and write that. So it's actually really robust to jump in and do that, and it's easy to keep track of everything that you're putting down. And then it's great because, you know, my producer will be like, all right, so where are we at with the story on this? And then you can say, okay, and you just kind of copy those beats, and then you send him like a 20 beat outline to say, this is the essence of the story. Are there any issues that you're seeing? And then they can get feedback on that. So it was actually funny for Jason Fowler. We went 5 deep before we sent him kind of our outline, like for the story, because he wanted to see us develop the story a little bit and send it his way. And when we sent that to him, he started off by saying, well, gosh, I feel bad giving feedback because I think that you guys already wrote everything. And so we've learned that when it comes to a lot of just getting the ideas and stuff down, that, you know, we usually deliver stuff about 2 or 3 deep. And 4 deep and 5 deep is really more important for writing the script than it is to giving to somebody to understand like what you're trying to do story-wise.
That's cool.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I was gonna say, my hand was up a little while ago, but.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was gonna come to you.
I would love to talk to you because I think what we do would plug into your process really, really, really efficiently.
Oh yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that it does. Because like I said, you know, we have, you know, I study narrative structure at BYU. We have all of these structures and things that we follow and analysis and everything like that. So I feel like that falls into those really, really well. But again, this one I approach with the idea of developing it and getting it there so that it can be analyzed, rather than, you know, look at the analysis and be like, oh gosh, you know, at page 27, I need to make sure that like I'm at this point and that the hero is at the dark night of the soul at page like 80. And you got to make sure that catalyst is there by page 11 or you're done and your movie's never going to be enjoyed by everybody. It's not as strict as that. It's very free flowing. And so it kind of allows you to do the initial, I call it the vomit pass. What's that?
It's like in an infomercial.
No. I want the exciting moment like page 5 and anything I do.
Right. But yeah, I think that it works really well to enable and facilitate like your initial vomit. When you just want to get everything out there before you kind of know what everything is. Because I think a lot of times we have what we think is a great idea, and then we start writing it out, and then you get, you know, a third of the way through, a quarter of the way through, halfway through, over to the end, and then you say, oh shoot, I had this really cool idea, but I really don't know how this how this character ends or how anything finishes. Because you have people say, oh, like I can only write a story if I know the ending, right? And you have like discovery writers and all that kind of stuff, and this kind of encompasses all of that for you.
Do your outlines get analyzed a lot, or do you have to take it to a script before it gets analyzed?
They've been analyzed a lot once we started getting money for them.
Brilliant answer. I was gonna say, our model, I think, would be awesome for you right at the beginning and right at the end of this writing process.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be crazy valuable filling all these beats in to hit it right before you get started.
Yep.
To get your first couple levels in, and then waiting until you've gotten your 5 levels deep and hit it one more time.
Yep. Yeah, because you have to understand, you know, like who are your characters going to be? What's the theme that you're trying to explore? You know, the whole presentation that you gave, which is why I was so excited to give this one, because I felt like you gave us the meat of what the structure of the stories are. And so I feel like this is a good follow-up to that, to say once you know that meat and once you kind of have those ideas, like this is how we can start, you know, seasoning and preparing your dish and planning and plotting it all out.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm working on, okay, yeah, I already have my elevator pitch.
Awesome.
Okay, then that's the question I have is, do you take this outline and turn it into a pitch?
Yeah, you can. Like I said, you do this And, you know, you can look at this as like, your first beat is really your log line, right?
Yep.
And how long
And your
should
3 beat is really your synopsis.
Okay.
And then your 4 deep becomes, what is it called, long synopsis?
Full-page treatment.
Huh, full page treatment.
Well, the fourth beat, the fourth.
Let's see,
Fourth level.
1, 2, yeah, so the 3rd level, which is 27 beats, becomes your treatment, right? And then I feel like once you get into 4 deep, like that's you diving into the meat and potatoes of that story for yourself as the writer. And then, you know, like I said, I'm a masochist. You get 5 deep and you basically have your script written because
Wow.
you've got the 241 beats there.
That's cool.
Or in our case, when we do our 3-4-3 split, you end up with more. But that's usually because, and I feel like this is part of the process, but you need to jump into scenes, you need to write them out, you need to kind of explore that space. But once you get that down there, usually what I like to do for my 2nd and 3rd passes of my script is I start looking at all the scenes and I say, what is this scene accomplishing? And if a scene is only doing like one thing, I consider that a failure. And so I'll often go through my scripts and my stories and I'll look at scenes and I'll start combining them and say, you know what, this thing that happens here, it can happen in the previous scene at the same time that this stuff is going on. And then we can let those play off of each other for a little bit more conflict. And it just gives us a little bit more wiggle room because usually what will happen is you write out like 120 pages and then maybe you cut 20 pages down and it becomes 100 once you refine it. And then once you shoot it, you know, you're probably sitting at around 90 minutes because, you know, what
Editing.
Editing, like it's now that I've done 2 features, I find it really fascinating that it is true that like stuff that you think works really well on paper sometimes just don't work out as well on the screen. And I'd be curious to chat with, you know, all of you about how that happens for you, because I look at that and I'm like, I'm a failure of a director because I didn't catch this when I was outlining it like 9 months ago. And now that I look at it, it's like, oh yeah, we take that scene out and we crush those 2 scenes together and the flow and pacing is amazing. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
You are gonna throw some babies out.
Yeah.
You are.
And it's part of the process. And so generally, you know, I let that go to the 241. You get to your 100, 120 pages. You kind of shoot high, and then you refine down and find the gems, find the moments that really work, and then you build around those as well. And we try to catch that as much as possible in the outline phase, because if we go through and we present our treatment to the distributor and with our business partners and you know, my producer and all those people are looking at it and coming back and saying, like, this is the thing that bothers me here, it's so much easier to catch it in this outline phase where you're kind of working through those things. And then once those things are all in place, it's so much easier to jump out and flesh it out before you sit down and commit to the words to paper.
So the book Story by Robert McKee,
Uh-huh.
he has a great quote that supports this.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a lot of this he says supports it. What he says is that he had seen some memo or something from some writer writing to a producer back in the golden age of Hollywood or something.
Yeah.
And the writer reporting back to the producer said, the script is finished, it only needs the dialogue. And that's not meant as a joke. It was meant as a very serious, professional way of dealing with the craft.
Yeah.
Because too many writers are too anxious to get to the dialogue. I got to write all this out, and he said this, she said that, all that. Instead, what they should be doing is going through the character, all the character elements there, and their relationships, and the elements, the details, the events, the actions, out of which finally, last, the dialogue comes.
Yep.
Walt Disney hammers on that so much
Yeah.
through his career.
I'm actually, and this is a personal preference thing, I'm actually someone who is very strongly engaged with the show don't tell type aspect, which always makes me laugh because my 2 features are romantic comedies, and those are all about 2 people talking to each other. But, and there's more to it than that, but there's a lot of talking in romantic comedies. But yeah, what I do kind of going along the lines of that is my rule is I don't write dialogue until I'm 5 deep. So this section on the 5 deep is when I allow myself to write dialogue out for characters. If you're writing dialogue in your synopsis, you know, like you're off the beaten path in terms of what your story beats are. And unless I mean, of course there's exceptions to everything. I could see Luke, I am your father being like one of those beats in
Well,
there.
and that's a story and a character element.
Right.
Which is embodied in that statement.
Right.
And once in a while, sometimes when I'm writing, I will put a dialogue fragment here. And I'll toss a little note here, this is an idea.
Yep.
A couple of dialogue elements. But not to let that take over and hijack the whole process.
Right. Right. And a lot of times if we like hit like a sentence or something we think is brilliant, then we have like our own separate page that's just like good quotes, like great dialogue that we'll put in there that we want to work into the characters. But we generally keep it out of the outline until we get to that end point. So
I can't wait to work together.
I was gonna say, it's a playground for me.
Yeah.
Watching your process to actually get your pages written, and just looking at where, like, I could schedule when to meet where we could offer the most value on our end.
Yep.
To speed up your process.
Yep.
And then, you know, give you what you need, let you run, and then come back right at the end, hit it again, see if you want to polish anything, and then boom, you're ready to greenlight.
Yeah, because could you imagine getting together with a writer that's gone like too deep, that's just like, I have this great idea, this is kind of like what I want it to be, and then you sit down with them and say, okay, like who's the character on this, and like what's their internal conflict?
I mean, people would come to me before I quit the library and say, all right, now, what, I've got these characters now, and I'd just start asking questions 15 minutes later.
Yeah, and then, I mean, here, I'll dive in. I feel like the rule of threes is really simple that anybody can start off doing, and then I just overcomplicate it with my bizarre insanity. Because when we go 4 deep, I want to say that we do like a number system. So like it'd be like 1 through, I can't remember what it was, like 1 through 84. And then on the last part, the 50, then you break that into A, B, C. And so then that way you can start talking about like your story. You're like, oh yeah, B, like 33 on B and C, we're having this going on with these characters. Is that going to cause any issues? Because previously in beat number 13, this happened. So like maybe that character knows that already. And it makes it easy you know, for these kind of conversations and collaborations. And again, like I said, this was all tested because I was working with a writing partner and we wanted to make sure that we streamlined our story so that we were in tandem with each other rather than stepping on each other's toes.
Good thing to keep in mind, even with our stuff, you're going to hit the point where you're ready to write dialogue, and that's where you hit into the craft. You're going to need a good writer that knows how to write dialogue in order to execute this well anyway. And I have to tell people that, like, what we're offering is not a magic bullet to this perfect screenplay.
Right.
What we're offering is to help you understand the skeleton of your story, and it's still going to come down on the writer and how talented they are, how much time they spent beating on their craft. Good dialogue is good dialogue.
And
It comes
Katie
down
will
to
say,
the
she says,
writer.
I can't teach you voice. I can't teach you voice.
Nobody can teach voice,
So-
but I'm also of the opinion that you shouldn't worry about voice. Voice comes out when you do things, not necessarily coming out, because you're like, you know what, my voice is going to be Tarantino.
Well, plus voice, it really should be an outgrowth of the character.
Right.
Each character.
Right.
Separately.
What I've found working with many, many authors now, where most authors get stuck is what he's talking about, what we're talking about here. They're getting stuck with what happens next. That's writer's block, essentially, in a nutshell. For most writers, they can write dialogue, they can write these things, they've done it, you know, depending on how far advanced they are in their career, they can do that. This is what stumps them.
Yep. And that's actually, I was listening to a writer interview the other day, and he said something along the lines of, he believes that writer's block just comes from not knowing what to do next. And so this is just a method that one can use to figure out, okay, like what can I do next? And sometimes if it's the I don't know, you know, that's when you just move on to the next thing and go forward. There was, on Bookworm and the Beast actually, we went about 3 deep, and there was some middle sections where we didn't know where to go. And so when we went 4 deep, those were just kind of very blank. Sometimes it was just like something fun between these characters happens. And then it wasn't until we went 5 deep on some of the other points that something clicked and we're like, like if this happens here, they need to do this first. And then we took that and started plugging it in and filling that
So
tree
you
up.
backfilled
Yeah.
after you
Yeah.
found that incident that they
You can
did.
go in and you can start backfilling, and that's kind of like your outlining kind of works in your favor, like the way that animation does for feature films. For animation, you know, everybody's animating and creating all the scenes at once. And so it was Andrew Stanton, when he was doing WALL-E, that he talked about how he was going to do that jailbreak sequence where they started removing like all the little inhibitors so that all the defective droids can get out and do all their stuff. And he said that it wasn't until they were sitting there and they're like, well, how is this going to work? How are they going to break out? And the animator came up with this idea of, oh, you know, we'll have this and this and this here. And he was like, that's brilliant. And then they just took that and they put that in all these different little places from, you know, earlier in the film. And he says, oh, the great thing is that it looks like we planned it all along. But it wasn't until closer to the end that we finally cracked that issue. And in film, you can't necessarily do that because you can't sit there and be like, oh, you know, like, how did they get out of this? Oh, I know. They have a spaceship, and oh, shoot, we shot all of our space scenes, so, you know, no spaceship for us. But yeah, so that's what this allows is you explore those spaces, and then as you figure out those things and those beats, it gives you the flexibility so that you can go in and adjust those different beats and keep it fluid like that, so that really, again, once you jump into the script, everything's there so it looks like you knew exactly what you were doing from the beginning.
Very nice.
All right, thank you.